Back in the garage, back in the garage, in the garage, in the garage, back in the garage today, back in the garage, back in the garage today.
Back in the garage today, working on my 02 Ducati 620.
Alright guys, so in the last video I'm going to link right up here. Put brand new tires on the bike. We also cleaned the chain sprockets, adjusted those up. Got a few more things we want to do to it today. Also, since you last saw us, we did bleed the brakes and the clutch. Unfortunately, I deleted all that footage, so I'm not going to be able to share it with you. Also put on this factory fairing from Ducati. Got this for my sister for her birthday. I think it looks much better than the old one. I'm going to show you it. Yeah, this one looks much better. Speaking of birthday presents, my sister got me this really cool roller tool chest, and we're going to be using it today as we get to work on the bike. Alright, so I don't know if this is going to be a strict how-to video. We may just go and show you guys the highlights. We do need to replace the cam belts, replace the spark plugs, change the oil, check the valve clearance. Assuming the valve clearance is in check, isn't going to be a whole lot of work there. Should hopefully be able to get everything done today. And then basically everything's done for this bike and it's ready to ride. First thing we got to do to get to the cam belts, fortunately there's no fairing on this one, so all we got to do is kind of tilt this back to get to the upper two bolts. We got to take these covers off. You got a bolt here, or screw, whatever you want to call it, and then two over here, so there's 6 total. We'll pull these off and it'll give us access to the cam belts. There's also one other screw right there that's got to come out. Alright, so got the covers off. They basically just pop right off. You can see down here the horizontal belt, and then we got the vertical belt right here. I've got the tank sitting back down on. We'll prop it up here in a second, but pretty easy to get to the belts. Now that I have access to the belts, the next thing I want to do is get both the front spark plug and the rear spark plug pulled, so we can turn this engine, make sure the valve marks are all in line before we start to disturb the belts. Now up front here, the horizontal plug is easy enough to get to. Just pop that off and we're going to pull that plug out. I just pulled out the original spark plug, or what we believe to be the original spark plug. And then with the tank pulled back, fairly easy enough to get to the spark plug up here on the vertical cylinder. And here is the one from the vertical cylinder. Now hopefully this will focus in well enough. What you want to do, you got to get the timing marks lined up. So you want to make sure this mark is lined up with this screw. And it's going to be a little hard to see. You see this mark on this pulley is lined up with this pin right here. Now you have to do that by turning the crankshaft. In order to do that, just put it in gear and spin the rear wheel around, and then once this mark is lined up and this mark is lined up, you know they're both lined up properly, and now we can get to changing the belts. Alright, so I cracked loose these 2 bolts on the tensioner. We got all kinds of slack now. I'm going to slide these off very carefully without disturbing the pulleys because we don't want those to move. Just a real quick tip, in order to get the one up here on the vertical cylinder, you need to undo the zip ties here to let these wires drop down so you can actually get your Allen back in here. Otherwise it's going to put it at an angle and you're going to take the chance of stripping out the head, which is something you definitely don't want to do. Alright, so before we start putting the belts back on, take out this little screw, which is this one right here. And then just get, you can tell I used a wood screw, but any sort of screw in there, and this will keep these teeth from moving when you go to put the horizontal belt back on. We are going to replace these 2 belts with genuine Ducati belts. Thank you, Ducati Winchester. No, they did not give these to me. I did have to buy them. Alright, so you can see we got the vertical belt on, also have the horizontal belt on. Now they're loose as hell right now. That's we gotta adjust the tensioners up on them. But timing marks are still aligned on both, so once we get them tensioned, we should be good to go on these. Alright, so the manual calls to have these things tensioned so you can twist the belt at the midpoint at about a 45-degree angle. Anything more than that is too loose. Anything less than that is probably a little too tight. I think we're about where we need to be. So we're gonna put the covers back on. Yeah, obviously remember to take the wood screw or whatever you had in there out and put the factory screw back in. And the covers are back on, and just like that, the cam belts have been changed. Now according to Ducati, you are supposed to change those. I don't remember what the mileage is, but every 24 months, despite the mileage, those are quite a bit older. But if those things break, you're gonna wreck your entire valve train and pretty much junk your engine. So got those on. If you're wondering what they cost, they're right around $100 retail for the pair of them. Not that difficult to change. And since we had to take the spark plugs out anyway, the next thing we're going to do is put a brand new pair of spark plugs in the bike. Alright, so we're actually using Champion spark plugs. Normally I'm a big proponent of NGK, just didn't have them in stock. Make sure they are gapped to 0.6 millimeter. Put them in the bike. Since it's actually my sister's bike, I'm going to have her install the spark plugs. She needs to do some work. Now I always recommend putting them in by hand first, get them threaded in there, make sure they're properly seated. Then we can always take a socket and tighten them up, but put them in by hand, that way you don't have to worry about cross threading the plugs. Now we're up here on the vertical head. We're going to spin that one down in too, and then like I said, we'll throw a socket on there and get those tightened up. Now, for whatever reason, the NGK factory spark plug had an 18 millimeter shoulder on it. But with the Champion spark plugs, you can just use your little 5/8 spark plug wrench and get those put back in. Now, with the spark plug tightened back up, and put the boot back on, we're good to go.
I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give us a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, I encourage you to subscribe. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments section below. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.